Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. Today I'm talking about the top reason women leave relationships, okay? So obviously it takes two to tango. So I'm not saying that women are perfect angels when it comes to the reasons for them leaving and the breakups and marriage breakdowns and so, whatever, right? It's something that both parties are involved in. Sometimes it's more one person than the other, especially in terms of things like cheating, you know. Infidelity is a huge reason why someone will leave, and it's basically completely the other person's fault, the one that cheated. But ultimately, generally, this is the main reason why women leave the relationships that they're in. And what it all comes down to is a level of basically what I call unconsciousness. Okay. Now, when I say unconsciousness, I don't literally mean like the guy was asleep the whole time, but in terms of his presence sort of left the relationship, and maybe he was focused on other things. He wasn't focused on the relationship anymore. He wasn't focused on her. So, what are some examples of this? Okay. So the main reason then is her man became unconscious, okay? But what are these levels of unconsciousness? How does this sort of manifest in a relationship? So I'm going to list a few of these things, okay? So one of the things is that he was no longer present with her, okay? So do you know when someone isn't listening or paying attention to you? And do you know the difference between when someone is paying attention to you and when someone isn't paying attention to you? So in the example of this, basically she didn't feel like he was being present with her anymore. He wasn't paying attention to her anymore. He was focused on other things, like maybe his job, maybe even something like TV or video games, Netflix, whatever it may be. But maybe it was just in his head, right? As well, it could. There's many things that he could have been thinking of, but he just went unconscious and was no longer present with her, no longer really paying attention to her. This is when sometimes you hear women say things like, "Oh, he never listens to me," but what she's really saying is he wasn't. He may have even been hearing the words and understanding, but basically he wasn't present. There was no presence there. He was just sort of like going, "Oh, okay, yeah, and wasn't really looking at her, wasn't really getting involved in it, and wasn't showing that level of presence. Like the example that I gave of, do you know when someone is being present with you, and when do you know the difference between when they're being present and when you're talking to someone and they're not really paying attention? Okay, it's that level of not paying attention. This is what we're addressing here. He wasn't paying attention when she was talking to him. And basically it doesn't have to happen once, right, and her to leave. This is something that's been going on for a long time. He hasn't been present with her, hasn't been paying attention to her for a long time. It's something that has kept on reoccurring, and basically she gives up and she leaves. So what's another version of this man being unconscious is he stops treating her the way that he did at the beginning. And this is something I've seen with many relationships, okay? So even in my own personal life with people that I know. So, for example, someone I know said to me her husband used to always, take her to these retreats, like a log fire cabin, out in the woods with like a jacuzzi and stuff. Like he used to do that with her when they started dating, and then he stopped doing that. He just stopped, taking her out on those weekend retreats, okay? I don't know the full ins and outs of it because they're actually still together. They haven't split up, but it's just something that I've heard her complain about. That he used to do all these different things when they were starting dating, and he was courting her and getting her to warm up to him, to be in a relationship with him, basically courting her, basically. And he stopped doing those things. So one of the best ways to keep your woman in love with you is to have this attitude of, I cannot let the dating end. Okay, because what can happen is when you get into a relationship, you sort of become complacent and you stop treating your partner the same way that you did at the beginning of the relationship. Now, women can do this too, right? It's not just all men. Like women can do this too in a relationship. They stop treating their men the way that they did at the beginning of the relationship. Like maybe she stops dressing up nicely, like doing her hair, doing her makeup for him, when before she used to do that a lot. And that's to say that she's not doing that kind of thing anymore. Perhaps she's no longer cooking him nice meals anymore. Maybe she's just letting him have a microwave dinner when before she used to cook him nice things. And maybe it's the same. Maybe he used to cook her lots of nice things and now he no longer does that. It's just one of those things, right? So basically the way that you keep your partner is you've got to continue to do the things that you did at the beginning of the relationship. Otherwise, you just lied to them, you know? Because you weren't the person that they thought you were, because they thought that you were always going to be doing these nice things for them, and that's one of the things that made them fall in love with you. Because especially if your love language is time shared together or gift giving, things to that effect, maybe even physical touch as well. Because one of the things that can happen is, and this leads into my next point, which is things became routine. So when you first meet someone and you first start dating someone, what you do is you're just touching them all over all the time. You know, you're trying out different positions in bed and you're doing all these different things and you're touching them all over and kissing each other all over. And then at some point you find a routine in that bedroom where you're doing the same thing, and then you just keep on doing the same thing over and over again, and you've stopped bringing novelty into it and you just do the same thing each time, and things become routine. And that's another reason why a woman may leave the relationship. And it may not be for sexual reasons, but things have become so routine, it's predictable and boring, basically. And there's no effort being put into it anymore. There's no effort being put into the relationship. There's no effort being put into the dates. There's no effort being put into the connection, the conversation that you guys have. And that's another reason, okay? So you want to keep things spicy. You want to have some novelty. It doesn't necessarily have to be bedroom stuff. It's like, it's all aspects of the relationship. Like, can you go to different places? Like, one of the things that me and my wife personally like to do is we like to go on walks, but we don't always go and have the same walk every time. We go different places. We go to different places to have a hike, to have a walk. And that's just one of the ways that we've always done it. Our first date was going out on a walk. I didn't spend a dime that day. If you think you could have to, you know, be really expensive on dates with women, you don't have to be. You can just go out for a walk, especially if that's something that you personally like yourself. If you like to go out for a walk, then just invite her out on a walk because that's something that you like to do. And if she doesn't like that, well, then maybe you shouldn't be with her anyway, and you shouldn't date her, because if you're someone who likes to go out for walks, then you should find someone else who also likes to go out for walks. Okay, it's just common sense, okay? So you don't have to be expensive with dates, okay? But anyway, you got to keep on doing those things, but also you got to shift it up a bit. You don't want to always do the same thing. So for example, let's say with your wife, you always go out and go for your date night, you always go to the same cinema, and then afterwards you always go and eat at the same restaurant, and it's always at the same time, right? And that's something that's turning routine. So in order to bring some interest and some magic and some spice into your relationship, do something different. And sometimes maybe do something like if you've got the time, have a date night twice a week rather than once a week. You know, just spice things up. Or sometimes you don't take her out for a whole week and then you go out maybe the week after, but maybe you do it on a different day. You don't always go on like a Friday evening. Perhaps you go on a Tuesday evening or Sunday or something like that, right? It's about just keeping the routine alive. But if things become too routine, then it gets boring for both people, and basically what it shows is that you're not putting your best foot forward, and you're not putting any sort of level of consciousness. And again, going back to consciousness, thinking outside the box and thinking, oh, how can I improve this date, or how can I make a different date? How can I make this date more interesting? Or just something simple of where else can we go instead of going to the same place all the time? You don't want to go into this unconsciousness of just getting stuck into this routine and not being aware and alert of how you can make things different next time, or do something different, or just doing a quick, it's just the thought, the level of thought that you're putting into it. And women do leave their men when I've heard women say things like, he is thoughtless, he's not putting effort into things, or he's not trying, okay? And trying could simply be just going on Google Maps and looking for somewhere else to go on a date. That's it. That's all she needs, basically. That's just a different kind of level of awareness. And it's just something so simple of just thinking outside the box, just a tiny bit. You don't have to use much brain power to do something along those lines. But it's one of the reasons why women leave, because their men become unconscious and stop treating her like they did at the beginning, and they fell into a routine, and they're no longer putting in any kind of effort. So another one, this is a huge one, another level of this unconsciousness is the appreciation has stopped. So it could be that before you used to thank her all the time for all the things that she did for you, and then because she did them so much and did them every day, that maybe there became a time where you just forgot to say thank you. Okay. And it all comes down to basically the law of familiarity. And basically the law of familiarity is this: the longer you spend with someone, the more you take them for granted. Okay. And that goes for both men and women. It's something that everyone falls into the trap of. So for example, let's say when you get a new pet, you're like, oh, it's novelty, it's new, it's brand new. And then after a while, yeah, you still keep on taking care of the pet. You still walk it or feed it, whatever it may be, depending on the kind of pet that you have. But you're no longer as excited as you were, because it's just become part of your daily routine, part of your daily life. And then you start taking that pet for granted. Okay. And you, unfortunately, it usually just comes down to the moment where you're actually going to lose your pet and you have to take them to the vets to put them down, that you realize that, oh my God, I had such a great pet. But it's just something that we all fall into. When we spend time around something or someone long enough, we start to take it for granted. And it doesn't matter who you are, we all fall into that. So it all comes back to being conscious of this and learning to appreciate and thinking, and you're basically just thinking, okay, she did this for me, I better say thank you. Even if it was just something simple as bringing you a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, or ironing your clothes, whatever it may be, making you a meal, and just remembering to say thank you and to show that appreciation. And sometimes it all comes down to as well is just giving that little bit more effort. Instead of just saying the words thank you, you may hug her and say thank you. It's just all about giving to something a little bit else, and just remembering to bring that novelty to it. So maybe don't always give her a hug and say thank you. Maybe sometimes you kiss her on the head and say thank you. It's all about just showing that even if it's just a slight effort, you're still putting in some effort, even if it's just a tiny bit. And that's the sort of the remedy for that. Okay. So another level of this as well is when he basically stops bothering to break down her barriers. And what I mean by this is that sometimes when a woman is upset, what you'll find is when she's upset, when you're just dating each other and the relationship is new, she'll just come out and tell you straight away what's bothering her, what's wrong. But there'll come a point where maybe she gets a bit tired of explaining to you what's wrong, whatever it may be, and then she just decides one day to stop telling you what's wrong. She just goes, oh, I'm fine. And then, because maybe for whatever reason she doesn't want to deal with her emotions, maybe she can sense that you don't really want to deal with her emotions right now, so she closes off a little bit. Okay. And basically this is a test. She's testing to see if you really care when she does this, because if you really care, you will stop whatever it is that you're doing. And even though she's showing some resistance right now, you're going to keep on bothering her and asking her what's wrong until she tells you. And that's what you got to do. You just got to not let it go. You just got to keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. She may get mad. She may get sad. She may have a bit of a outburst for whatever reason. But it's all about showing that you're not going anywhere. You know something's up, and you're just going to keep on asking her and keep on annoying her basically until she tells you what's up. And that shows to her that you really care. But because they get to a point in the relationship where a woman maybe can't be bothered to deal with her feelings herself, she doesn't want to tell you what's wrong. Perhaps, she can sense that you don't really want to deal with it either because you're tired or something's going on in your life, and she doesn't want to be a burden to you. So she just says, oh, I'm fine, even though you can kind of tell that something isn't quite right. That can happen, and basically what happens is that keeps on happening, and therefore she closes down more and more and more and more and more as time progresses, and she gets to a point where she thinks that he doesn't care anymore. He's not trying anymore. He's not trying to figure out what's wrong. Okay, whereas before maybe you did. But it all comes down to, in a nutshell, the reason why a woman leaves her man is because he has become unconscious on some level, and he's no longer bringing his presence or effort into the relationship. Okay, and it may be the case though, maybe she's also doing the same thing, and therefore maybe the reason why you two no longer have been putting your best foot forward is because you just no longer love each other, and that's the reason why, you know, and that's why you're not putting your effort in anymore. If you're not trying and you're not doing, you know, the remedies that I've discussed in this video, then that maybe it's best that you guys are gonna, you know, end things. But while there's still time, if you've still got the time, then bring that level of awareness. Just bring more consciousness to your relationship and become more aware. So I highly recommend that you save this video and come back to it when you're having these kinds of problems, so you can prevent your woman from leaving you. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me because you need help with a specific situation, then please go to www.christinelovers.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.